Biden family corruption, specifically surrounding Hunter. And, the defense that has always been made is, well, that's Hunter, that's not Joe. But much of what Hunter says suggests Joe was involved. And in fact, there's evidence this week that Hunter put Joe on the phone. In any case, there is the terrible stench of influence peddling with impunity by the Bidens. Now, this is slightly galling to me because I was trying to call attention to that fact before Joe Biden was elected president. I don't know how many times between my Twitter account, between interviews in various places, DarkHorse, what was it called? The campfires that Unity 2020 held. The idea that the DNC was an influence peddling racket, that Joe Biden was a clear career influence peddler, that this put the country in great danger. These were things in which I was trying to raise the alarm before we ever elected this guy president.
Right.
And the fact that we are now finally seeing tons and tons of evidence, I mean, okay, the evidence is interesting, but how could anybody be shocked by this? This was obvious that this is what the man was. And as his decrepitude has advanced, the failure of the blue team to react like this is in any way important actually suggests that they understand that the president is not really in power. It doesn't matter that he's decrepit because something else controls the way the country functions in the first place. And so I'm not sure what to do with all of that, but we do seem to be stuck in a place where something appears to be controlling our trajectory. We have elections, but elections are not the same thing as democracy. And we are now faced with an appalling level of control over what we can discuss. We are now watching people. Joe Mercola had his bank accounts suspended without explanation by Chase Bank. This is
he reports, Dr. Mercola, yeah.
Yeah, he reports that this has happened, and between the insane overreach, punishing people who speak out of turn, the IRS showing up at Matt Taibbi's door in the immediate aftermath of Twitter Files revelations, the number of off-brand forms of control and coercion that are being used to prevent those who would still engage in journalism, those who would engage
in
science, those who would engage in medicine, any of these things. It's obvious that it's happening. And what the connection between all these things is, admittedly, I don't know. But it's obvious that we should be asking the question, especially, in light of what we have discovered about, for example, the Five Eyes Alliance, which is an alliance between the United States, the UK, New Zealand, Canada, and Australia that effectively functions to allow states to outsource violations of its own citizens' rights by having the intelligence agencies of other countries do the spying.
God, other than the fact that it's missing Canada, that's a greatest hits of bad COVID response countries.
I think it does have Canada. UK, US, Canada,
Australia, New Zealand,
Australia.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's the greatest hits right there.
That's the greatest hits. Right. And actually, so anyway, the point is, what is that thing? Well, intelligence agencies, the FBI is limited by the Constitution. The CIA is not limited by the Constitution because it's ostensibly supposed to be pointed outwards outside of the United States. But you can trade effectively. You can have somebody else spy on your citizens in a way you're not technically allowed to. And if everybody pools those resources, basically the constitutional protections don't exist.
But Brett, it sounds like you're opposed to convenience.
Well, okay, we're going to add convenience to recreation as things that I alone am opposed to. But all right, I'm going to get off.
You grant that it makes it easier for them.
Yeah, it's an efficiency thing.
Yeah.
It saves money off their black budgets.
Right.
So
They can. Right.
yeah. All right. I think that's more or less what I wanted to outline. We will. Oh no, there was one other thing I wanted to add.
Is that 48-point font?
I'm
Sorry.
I'm stuck permanently. I don't need glasses for distance. I do need them for reading, and if I'm not going to be constantly putting them on, I need to have large font. So I make no apologies.
I know. I wouldn't have said that if I thought you were embarrassed by it.
Yeah. All right. So here's the final thing I want to point out. We have a terrible corruption problem, right? Those of us who have thought deeply about it call it capture for a reason, because it's not an adjustment to policy based on a certain amount of resources flowing in the wrong direction. It is actually the commandeering of agencies and institutions and the repurposing of them, often in the exact inverse direction that they are supposed to be pointed. Okay, so that's a terrible problem. We've now seen it. During COVID, not only did we do everything wrong, but we did everything the opposite of right, right? Something was very interested in pharma coming out of that, glowing, and it didn't really care that people were going to get maimed in the process. All right, that's a terrible corruption problem. Does anybody think that the fact that we have a pay-for-play political system has not been noticed by our enemies? Why would our enemies not have noticed that in the United States, if you have enough resources, you can get policy that fits your special interest? And if your special interest is that you're an enemy of the U.S. and you want us, for example, to, I don't know, feminize our military or something so they're less scary, that there's probably a price, right? Given Biden family corruption, I think we have to ask the question, why are we fighting a proxy war in Ukraine? Why are we risking nuclear war in Ukraine? Is that because somebody thinks this is a good idea for the American public, or is it because something external has paid the price to get us to do it? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't pretend to, but I do think it is a question we have to ask. And in thinking about how to present this, I remembered, as you know, one of my favorite fiction books is Catch-22. And I was reminded of a particular episode in Catch-22. Almost all of the episodes in Catch-22 have happened in real life in a much less comedic form in the years since I've been aware of it. But I was reminded of a particular episode in Catch-22 surrounding Milo Minderbinder. And for those who haven't read the book, I just want to say Milo Minderbinder, I think, is the most interesting character in the whole book. Milo Minderbinder starts out as a likable, ambitious patriot who attempts to do his job. He is in charge of the commissary, I guess, providing food.
Oh, just food?
Yeah, I think he's providing food for the pilots in this World War II Air Force base. And Milo initially provides wonderful food, because if he's going to provide food, why wouldn't he provide the best? And so he does a spectacular job, and this brings him in contact with the market, right? Because, of course, you have to source the ingredients to make the marvelous food for the pilots. And so anyway, he at first makes normal contact with market forces. And as the book progresses, those market forces turn him from this likable, ambitious guy with plenty of pluck and ingenuity,
but also an underlying patriotism,
into a Hitlerian character, right? Seamlessly. And so in one case, which I managed to find the text of, Milo, who has produced something called the Syndicate. The Syndicate does the trading that allows him to procure the supplies, but it becomes this business. So in one of his, in an early episode with the Syndicate has purchased a huge amount of Egyptian cotton, which turns out to have been he can't unload the stuff, he can't trade it, he's just got warehouses full of the stuff, and he wants to get rid of it, and so he decides to try to feed it to the pilots. And of course,
cotton.
It's inedible.
It turns out to be cotton. So it
Didn't
doesn't
work. But anyway, that's mild compared to what goes on later. Later in the book, there's a case where Nately, one of the pilots, has died because he's bailed out of his plane and his parachute has been replaced by shares in the syndicate, which he discovers as he pulls the ripcord. And Milo has a conversation with Yossarian about the fact of Nately's untimely death. Milo says, Nately died a wealthy man, Yossarian. He had over 60 shares in the syndicate. Yossarian says, what difference does that make? He's dead. Minderbinder says, well, then his family will get it. Yossarian says, he didn't have time to have a family. Milo says, then his parents will get it. Yossarian says, they don't need it. They're rich. Milo says, then they'll understand. So, anyway, he becomes this evil character. In one of the episodes, Milo contracts with the Nazis to bomb his own base. Right? Now, this is a mind-bending problem, because what Milo does is he reasons that the Germans are going to bomb the base. Anyway, they're going to do it, and people are going to get killed.
Yeah.
And Milo can bomb the base as a contractual matter, and he can make sure that nobody gets hurt.
It's like, we're going to do it for you.
Right.
And you're going to pay us.
Right. And so...
we'll do your work for you.
Right. And so my point is, the market has a mind-bending logic. Not all of the logic is tolerable, right? You can make a defense of Milo Minderbinder bombing his own base, because the point is the base is going to get bombed and nobody's going to get killed this way. It's a moral good.
Someone was going to do it, and I did it better.
Right. And my point is, the corruption that we see and the role that it plays in our history, which we will never fully understand, is such a thing. Whatever market forces cause people to fear that democracy was going to upend good processes for no reason. I mean, and this does happen, right? We see absolutely nonsensical stuff, warning stickers over everything, right? If warning stickers actually save lives, then too many warning stickers kills people, because you don't read warning stickers anymore, right? So we see a proliferation of warning stickers that originally came from some honorable impulse, but has just gotten out of control.
So warning stickers have been found by the state of California to cause cancer.
That would be good. I bet they do if you eat enough of them. But anyway, the point is, look, there are legitimate fears to have about democracy, journalism, science, right? Good people can find themselves upended by people nitpicking them to death. On the other hand, without the processes that are capable of nitpicking people to death, we are vulnerable to something else, which is the very stuff that the founders of this country feared, right? Unbridled power in the hands of something like a monarch, descents into tyranny of all kinds. And so, in any case, we're going to have to address the question of the deep state. Does it exist? What is it made of? And how can we remove it so we can go back to the frightening prospect of democracy?